Alright, hey y'all. You are going to have to forgive the way that I look. I'm very tired. I'm having some eye issues, and I have my hair wrapped up for the night because I'm getting ready to go to sleep. But I wanted to come and make a quick video. I believe Yahuah is doing something in my life right now. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing in my life right now, but he's moving me into an area that he didn't have me in before. He's never had me in an area or spoken to me about teaching anyone anything out of the scriptures, because I myself am a work in progress and learning and very much a child of Israel, not an adult. I have really been maybe able to smell the meat of matters, but not really to chew it and digest it myself. And I never really was a studier of scripture. I've really just started getting into reading the scriptures, and a lot of what I had learned was just watching teachings from other people and then being a Berean, right? Because the scriptures say be a Berean. So I saw myself very much as a Berean, where I would watch all these different teachings, and then I would go to the scriptures and I would search the scriptures to see if those teachings were true and try and find what was righteous and what was not righteous about the teachings that I was watching. And this is how I've been moving about for, I'd say, maybe the past year. But always reading and getting more and more understanding as I read with time, but just watching others and really seeing how they were gleaming information from the scriptures that I wasn't. And I've really been praying more lately that Yahuah would provide me with understanding and revelation of what he meant, what his words meant in the scriptures. Because I don't want to per se learn everything based on the doctrines of man. I don't always want to be a Berean. I believe that that is what you have to do when you're first learning. But at some point, you start learning, you put Torah into action, and as you put Torah into action, then you are a fertile ground for seed to be planted in, right? I think that's why the Bible always speaks to us in terms of like planting and gardening, and that's, what our people were about. Please forgive me for moving about. I was not planning on filming a video, but that's what I'm doing right now, and so y'all have to just bear with me. Yeah. So I think that's why there's so many scriptures. Oh, this is a mess. Oh. And now the camera's turning because I can't get it to sit up. There we go. I think that's why there's so many scriptures and, so many parables that refer to gardening. And, the parable of the sower, the parable of the seed. Just always focusing on us being fertile ground for seed to be planted in, so that that seed would produce fruit, right? And I always knew that, I guess, I would start out as a Berean, hearing people teach me and studying scriptures to find, does it match up with scripture? And then walking out Torah. And as you walk out Torah, it makes you that fertile ground so that when seed is planted, it would produce good fruit, not bad, rotten fruit, right? And I feel like that's finally happening in my life. Like, I've had to give up a lot. I live a very isolated, solitary life now. I've really started to give up a lot of my old habits and bad habits from the world that I thought that I would never separate myself from. And I find myself being very peaceful doing so, where before I had so much hurt and so much pain that I couldn't step away from things like alcohol and marijuana and cigarettes. And now those things just don't have a hold on me anymore. I am at the point now where all day long at work, I'm just thinking about getting home and getting into my scriptures and reading. And it started out trying to read and just really having to force myself to read. And I don't know what he's done to me over the past 2 to 3 days. But there's been other times where he's put something on my heart and I've fallen into a mode of studying. But these past 2 days, I don't know what he's done. I've been really, for some time now, months, I've been, pushing myself to read and dedicate more time to him. And I haven't done a really good job of doing it on a daily basis. And I beat myself up a lot of times because I don't spend tons and tons and tons of time in the scriptures on the Shabbat. But during the weekdays, I find myself really kind of getting into my scriptures, waking up early in the morning, taking a bath and reading my scriptures. While I do that, because it's time that I make and set aside to be in my scriptures. And I don't know, the other morning I got up and I read, and then I came home and I read, and I've just been doing that for a couple days now, more than a couple days, but the past couple of days, I don't know, something happened. I started to make advancements somewhere along the way, and I got to Isaiah, or Yeshayahu, and I got to chapter 4, and I just hit something that sparked something in my spirit, and I couldn't step away from it, and I ended up going into a multiple day study, and I have gone so many places through the scriptures. I have done some serious scriptural calisthenics. I have been through books in the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Old Covenant, the Renewed Covenant, and so I have always somehow latched on to the teaching and the truth that HaMashiach is exactly what it is. Yahusha or Yahushua, whatever you call him, as long as you're trying to say it in the Hebrew dialect, is the Messiah. I know that he died and rose again. I know that. I've known that since I learned that in Christianity, right? That it just seemed like a no-brainer to me. I latched onto that idea very much so. And even coming out of Christianity and coming into the truth and understanding exactly what it was for, that he was the sacrificial lamb. I'm not going to get into all that. Just knowing what it really happened for, that he said if we loved him, we would listen to him and follow his commandments, and him being the word. And in 1 John, it's just saying that he was the word, and the word was with Yah in the beginning, and the word was Yah, that they're Echad. I don't know, somehow I just seem to always know that to be the truth. How it made sense, I wasn't sure. And over the past couple years, I feel like he's given me small like bits and pieces of it, right? And then I've learned a lot from watching different teachers, and being a Berean and tying the scriptures into their teachings, and doing that for several different teachers and getting different perspectives. And it gave me a really good understanding of the whole idea, right? And then, I don't know, he gave me this like revelation some time ago from reading Genesis, about how there is an Elohim and then there's Yahuah, right? But then we say that HaMashiach, Yahusha, has always been, and people say that he says that he is Elohim. Elohim says he is one. And a lot of people find that very hard to grasp or understand, but somewhere between Genesis 1 and 2, there were just certain things that he gave me, and I did a study on that some time ago that really helped me to hone in on that. And I've always understood that Yahusha HaMashiach was Yahuah made flesh, because he was the Word made flesh, and Elohim is like a spirit. So the way I always tried to tie it in together with him being Echad, is like, okay, so people are like, oh, he can't be Echad, he can't be one because he's two, because he's three, but that doesn't make sense. He's Echad. He says it over and over. He's one. He's Echad. So I'm one person. I am Echad, right? My mouth, my hands, my eyes, my nose, my brain, all of these things are singular like entities, right? But they all come together and they create one being, one me. I am Echad. But there's something that rules over me. There's something that's more important in all of this, right? There's something that is, if we're just talking about like flesh, carnally, we're just speaking flesh carnally. You guys have to forgive me. I'm just in this place right now where my mind is blown, and I'm trying to explain where I'm coming from, right? So right now, I have words, right? And I'm speaking to you with my words. This is my word, right? Coming out, coming at you, expressing all my thoughts, all my feelings, all the creation, all my creation, right? So my mouth, my hands, they create things, right? I can create words. I can create physical entities with my hands. So I can create, because we're made in the image of Elohim, right? And Elohim is a creator. He created things. But I don't know. Let me see if I can make this make sense, right? So if you go to Genesis, and this is actually going into the very first study that I did, that I would not say that this is the study of Isaiah. Now what I'm doing is I'm getting back into the original thing that made me like latch onto this idea. So when you read Genesis 1, right? In Genesis 1, in the beginning, Elohim created, right? And it specifically uses the word created. And if you're, speaking in terms of Hebrew, it's bara, right? He barad. So he created heaven and earth. And in chapter 1, through the entirety of chapter 1, if you read, it specifically says, and Elohim. So Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And Elohim said, let there be light. And Elohim called the light day. And Elohim let an expanse come in the midst of the waters. And Elohim made the expanse. And Elohim called the expanse, right? So throughout all of Genesis 1, Elohim is the only entity mentioned. But we know that im at the end of something means it's plural, right? But Elohim is Echad. So somehow he is one, but he is plural, right? So you have to grasp onto that. So that's what made me start thinking about me being one, but being plural, right? And then by the time you get to Genesis chapter 2, right in the beginning of chapter 2, it takes you into the seventh day. And it tells you how on the seventh day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested. And Elohim blessed the seventh day, and he set it apart. And then it says, and these are the births of the heavens. So at that point where it says, these are the births of the heavens and the earth, when they were created in the day that, and you get your first Yahuah. Okay? You get your first Yahuah in Genesis 2, verse 4. Until Genesis 2, verse 4, you only get Elohim, 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 Elohim. You get to Genesis 2, 4, and it gives you a wrap up. These are the births of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that Yahuah, Elohim, made earth and heavens. So that always struck out to me. Why, when it talks about the creation of the earth, is it just Elohim mentioned? But then when we get to the synopsis, Elohim created and then Yahuah Elohim made. So all of a sudden now Yahuah Elohim is introduced. Now it starts speaking in terms of Yahuah. Yahuah Elohim, Yahuah Elohim, Yahuah Elohim. Then at some point it breaks away from Yahuah Elohim, and then it just starts to refer to him as the name of Yahuah, then Yahuah. So there's like this progression that really made my mind start thinking. And I had to really start digging. And so that first one took me into the whole idea of the sun and the moon and the stars. And it took me into this whole thing, okay, about how Yahusha said that he and his father were Echad, right? But his father was greater than him. So you start to think, how can you be one and have a father and your father be greater than you? So then I felt like Yahuah was like, if you want to understand anything, you have to go back to the beginning. If you don't understand the beginning, you won't understand the middle, the end, any part of it. So I just really kept on reading Genesis over and over, reading Bereshit over and over again. And that's when I started to realize this whole Elohim and the Yahuah Elohim difference between Genesis 1 and 2 in this progression of Elohim, Yahuah Elohim, Yahuah. Then he kept on taking me back to a certain place, and it was when he created the sun and the moon, right? So that's going to be day 4. So let's go there. And Elohim said, oh, this is going to be Bereshit 1:14. And Elohim said, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and appointed times, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. Okay? So we know now that he created lights, and these lights were to give light on the earth. And that kept on taking me back to, I believe it's in John when it says that Yahusha was the light of men, right? And it always talks about Yahusha being the light. He's the light. He's the light in the darkness. He's a lamp to our feet. He's the light, right? So Yahusha's the light. That's just stuck in my head. And so you get to this point, he's creating the light, right? Elohim is creating the light. Now you know that Yahusha was with Elohim in the beginning, and they're Echad. So somehow this all starts to kind of take shape. I'm hoping you're seeing this, right? So let's continue on. Bereshit 1:16. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And Elohim set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fourth day. So this is where it started to make sense to me, this whole idea of being Echad, right? So, Yahusha HaMashiach said that he and his Father were one, that he was Yahuah, he was Elohim, but that we weren't supposed to pray to him, we were supposed to pray to his Father, because his Father was greater than him. So he came in his Father's esteem, but he always said that his Father was greater than him, but then he said that he and his Father were one. So then I feel like Yahuah gave me this idea in Genesis from the sun and the moon, not for us to worship the creation. That is not where I'm getting to. But you know how he works with examples and parables. And if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, then you'll see those examples and those parables. So he created light, right? And he created two great lights. So there's two great lights, right? But you have to think about it. These two great lights are one thing. They are a great light. So first and foremost, they are a great light. So they are Echad. They are one thing. They are great light. One is greater than the other. One rules over the day. The other rules over the night. But both of them are considered great lights. Then there was another light, the stars, because it says that there was the sun that was created, the moon, and the stars. But when he references the sun and the moon, he calls them great light. There were two great lights, one greater than the other. And then there were the stars. Now the stars are also light, but they are not a great light. So while they're light, they're not Echad, because two of those things are great lights. One is greater than the other, but they're both great light. And then stars, which are not great light, they're just light. They're not great. So they're a separate entity. And I just couldn't get over that. That blew my mind, right? So then I started thinking about Yahuah, or Yahusha HaMashiach, being the Word made flesh, right? And Yahuah being the Word, right? Because when we speak about, I do you understand? I can go on for hours about this. When we speak about the Exodus account, right? When he gives the commandments on Mount Sinai, Oof. Where was I going with that one? I completely lost my thought. I tend to do that. I totally forgot where I was going with that one. Oh, it was Yahuah. It was Yahuah who gave the commandments. Yes. So if we go to Exodus 19:18, it says, and Mount Sinai was in smoke, all of it, because Yahuah descended upon it in fire. And when a voice of the shofar sounded long and became very strong, Moshe spoke, and Elohim answered him by voice. So Elohim responded to Moshe by voice, right? But it says that Yahuah ascended on the mountain in fire. So once again, when I'm reading and I see Yahuah and I see Elohim and they are separated from each other, it makes my mind start to think about Echad, being Echad. Why are they separating it? Why is it not Yahuah Elohim? Why is it Elohim separated from Yahuah? And I feel like in those instances when they do that, that is a moment for you to start to study and really try and figure out what is happening so that you can really understand this idea of being Echad. And if you can do that, then you can truly see Yahusha HaMashiach throughout the entirety of the text. He has always been, right? He is Yahuah because Yahuah was the word of Elohim. And Yahusha HaMashiach is Yahuah, which is the word of Elohim made flesh. I don't know how else to explain this, right? So, this is what it made me think of, to go back to the beginning to where I started, right? So my mouth and my hands can create. And they're part of me. My mouth is not other than me. My hands are not other than me. They are part of me, and I am one. But my mouth and my hands are not greater than my brain, right? So my brain has to tell my mouth what to say. And it has to tell my hands how to move to do things for it. So my mouth and my hands create nothing. They do what the creator of myself tells them to do. And the creator of myself is my brain, which is not a visible entity to anyone else. But this thing up here is creating. Every word I say has to be thought, and the thought is the creation. But the mouth can't express that creation until the creator tells it to work. And in the scriptures, Yahusha literally says, I work because my Father works. So if you want to think of Elohim and Yahuah and Yahusha, Yahusha is nothing but Yahuah made flesh, right? And we've been enacting with Yahuah since the beginning, since Bereshith, right? But Yahuah is like, is spirit. I mean, not Yahuah. Elohim is spirit. He's like the thought process. He's the creator behind everything. So if we want to just try and put it into some place where we can think about it, my brain creates ideas. But the ideas that my brain creates have to somehow be carried out. And so it uses my words and my actions to carry out its creation. And my mouth and my hands can do nothing other than what the Creator tell them to do. They are not separate acting entities. Yes, they're their own things, but my hands are never going to think something and do it. My brain is always going to think it and then tell my hands, go do it. Right? So if you go back to the beginning, Elohim created, right? He created. When you create, it's a thought. You're thinking something. You're creating it. And then you have things that are below you that go and do the work. And that's why we're made in Elohim's image, right? Because we have the same thing where we can create. We create in our mind. We make with our mouth and our hands. I make words with my mouth. I don't create them with my mouth. My brain, which is not visible, we have no idea how this thing works. It creates the way Elohim creates. In our mouth and our hands and our legs and everything else, our Creator, the Creator tells them to do. But all these things are part of me. I'm still one. My hands, they're not a part of Monica. My mouth is not a part of Monica. My brain is not a part of Monica. But my mouth and my hands are lesser than my brain because my brain is the Creator. But I'm still one. So I hope that made any kind of sense. So if people come to you and they do the whole, like, you don't need to believe in the New Testament and you don't need to believe in a Messiah and we don't need a Savior, you need to be doing your own research. You need to be digging deep. Because yes, we do need a Messiah. Yes, we do need a Savior. And Yahusha HaMashiach is spoke of through this entire book. He is absolutely correct when he says that he and his Father are one. They are one. But he is lesser than his Father because his Father is the Creator and he is the one who enacts and does. He is the Word. So Yahuah thought of this world. Yahuah thought of all the commandments. Elohim thought of this world. Elohim thought of all the commandments. And Yahuah is the one who we have interacted with the entire time. When Yaakov wrestled and said, I have seen Yahuah face to face. I have seen Elohim face to face. He saw Yahuah face to face. Because didn't Yahusha say, nobody has seen the Father except for me? If you have seen me, you have seen the Father. But we say that we've been interacting with the Father from the beginning. But from the beginning, we've been enacting with Yahuah. We've been enacting with the Word. And you know we were enacting with the Word because it says right here in Genesis 19, verse 18. And Mount Sinai was in smoke, all of it because Yahuah descended on the mountain in fire. Now, if you want to play games because you don't have a book that has the Hebrew in it, that's fine. You ain't got to have a book that has the Hebrew. You can have a good old King James Version. And let's go to the same place, Exodus 19:18. Okay, 19:18. Now, the one thing I've learned is when you're reading the King James Version, you have to be very, very careful. I hear very many people replace all of the gods and all of the lords with Yahuah. If you do that, you're going to lose this idea of the creator and then the enactor, and both of them being Echad, but one being greater than the other. Elohim is the entire entity, right? It's the mouth, the hands, the mind, the great and mighty El. That's the creator. That's the spirit that is hovering over everything, right? That's what we can't comprehend. I'm not even going to begin to comprehend it in its entirety. I just get and 100% understand that Elohim is Echad, and Yahusha is Yahuah made flesh, and Yahuah is the word of Elohim. I get that 100%, because we're made in his image and we work the same way. That's how. Because we're made in his image. He meant that when he said we were made in his image. He made us in his image. Oh man, he's amazing. But anyway, in this book, when it says God in this book, you need to replace that with an Elohim. When it says Lord in this book, you need to replace that with a Yahuah. Okay? And when it says Jesus in this book, you need to replace that with a big old Yahusha. And when it says Christ, you need to replace that with another big old HaMashiach. And that is how you take the King James Version and make it make sense, because you're replacing where they took out very important names and replaced it with pagan titles. So all you got to do is take those pagan titles and turn them back into the Hebrew and replace the name. And this book is as good as any other version. I mean, that's half of what they did to the book to corrupt it, was take out the name and put in titles that demean our Elohim. So just change those. So as you're reading it, change them. And it's the same as having scriptures with the Hebrew in it, right? You've replaced the most important things. So let's go to 19. It was, what did I say? 1918? Exodus 19:18 or Shemoth 19:18. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke because, and it says the Lord, and we just discussed that when it says Lord, you replace that with Yahuah. So let's do that. And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke because Yahuah descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. Let's go to 19:19. And when the voice of the trumpet, so the trumpet once again is the shofar, right? So a trumpet is a shofar. So the voice of the trumpet or the voice of the shofar sounded long. So let's do that again. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, that means and grew louder and louder. Waxed is growing, like a waxing moon as opposed to a waning moon. Moses spake, and it says God here, and we know replace God with Elohim. And Elohim answered him by a voice. So Yahuah descended on the mountain. And when Moses spoke, Elohim responded to Moses through a voice. That voice was a trumpet or a shofar. And when you think of that, that ties into HaMashiach, and lets you know that HaMashiach is Yahuah. It is so freaking beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and go there and let's talk about that. So we are in Exodus, right? We are talking about being on the mount. We are talking about being on the mount. Aha! That's going to take me to Revelation 1:16, right? Because now we're there, and Yahuwah has descended on the mountain, and Moses has spoken, and Elohim has answered him with a voice after we heard a loud shofar blast, or a loud trumpet shofar blast. Then that takes me to Revelation. And this is where I start getting in. Now I'm starting to get into what I've gleaned from my Isaiah reading. Now we're going to go to Revelation 1:10. Okay? And this is John, or Yochanan. And he's having the vision, right? The revelation vision. He's being given that vision. So in Revelation 1:10, actually, we'll start at 1:9 and we'll work into 1:10. I, Yochanan, or John if you're reading the King James, I, Yochanan, your brother, and co-sharer in pressure, and in the reign and endurance of Yahusha HaMashiach, came to be on the island that is called Patmos, for the word of Elohim, which would be what? Yahuah and Yahusha if he's in flesh. But right now we're just dealing with the word of Elohim. And for the witness of Yahusha HaMashiach. So let me say that whole thing again without interjecting. I, Yochanan, your brother and co-sharer in pressure, and in the reign and endurance of Yahusha Messiah, came to be on the island that is called Patmos, for the word of Elohim and for the witness of Yahusha HaMashiach, or the Messiah. Now we're coming to 10. I came to be in the spirit on the day of Yahuah, right? We know what that is. And I heard behind me a loud voice as a trumpet. Wow. Now, is that not what we heard at Mount Sinai when Yahuwah descended upon the mountain in fire? And Elohim responded to Moses by a voice. And when John comes to Revelation and he's speaking of being on the island of Patmos, for the word of Elohim and for the witness of Yahusha HaMashiach, I came to be in the spirit on the day of Yahuwah, and I heard behind me a loud voice as a trumpet or as a shofar, saying, I am the Aleph and the Tav. Who said I'm the Aleph and the Tav? The beginning and the end, right? Ooh. The first and the last, right? And it tells him to write all this stuff in the book. Now, we want to talk a little bit more about who was on that mountain. Because when Moses went up into the mountain, right? And he was with Yahuwah for 40 days and 40 nights. When he came down from the mountain, his face was glowing. And all the children, all the elders of Israel saw his glowing face. And he had to wear a veil, right? And later on it says whenever he would go into the tent of meeting or the tent of appointment and he would speak with Yahuah face to face, when he came out, his face would be glowing. And it said that when he would go into the tent, he would remove the veil from his face and he would speak with Yahuah face to face. But when he came out of the tent, he would have to put the veil back on his face because his face shone so brightly from speaking face to face with Yahuah, right? Now, Yahusha told us that no one's ever seen the Father except that they've seen him, and that's how they've seen the Father. But we know that Moses was face to face with Yahuah. And Yahusha said that if you've seen him, then you've seen the Father. And the Father said his name is Yahuah. So, we're going back to Revelation with that one. And then I'm going to wrap this up because I can go so far into this. I suggest that you read Isaiah 4. I'll tell you where I was going with Isaiah 4 so you can do your own study on this. Because it's an amazing study. It really is. From one freaking chapter, it took me so far. But anyway, so I just talked to you about how Yahuah was how Moses spoke face to face with Yahuah and his face shone brightly, right? So now we're back to Revelation. We're still in 1. But with that, we're coming down to 14. Okay, 1:14. And this is where we get into, nope, you know what? Nope. We're going to go all the way back up, right? Because all this kind of leads into each other. It's pretty much 1 down through 17. It'd be best if you read Revelation chapter 1, 10 through 17. We already talked a little bit about how he was the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, and how he told him to write all these words in the book for the 7 churches. So let's go and follow up right behind that. This is Yochanan, once again, speaking about being in this vision on the island of Patmos. And I turned to see the voice which spoke with me. Now we already know that the voice was the sound of a trumpet. We heard the sound of a trumpet. I'm outside now. All right. And I turned to see the voice which spoke with me. And having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the son of Adam. Who was called the son of Adam? Okay? Dressed in a robe down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. A lot of times you'll hear girded around the paps with a girdle. And his head and hair were white as wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire. It's HaMashiach, right? And his feet like burnished brass. If I'm correct, that is not burnished brass. If I'm correct, and I've gone to the Hebrew and looked, it should be burnished bronze, which would be darker than brass. But anyway, even if it's brass, we know he was a brother. Okay? And his head and hair were white as wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire, and his feet like burnished brass, as it refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his face was as the sun shining in its strength. So if his face is like the sun shining in its strength, and Moses spoke with him face to face, and he imparted his spirit in Moses, then it would make sense that when Moses stepped away from him, Moses' face would shine like the sun, and then he would have to veil it. So if this is describing HaMashiach, can you not see how from Exodus to Revelation we are seeing that HaMashiach is Yahuah? This is him after he's rose, right? This is HaMashiach risen, which means Yahuah was made flesh and was Yahusha. And when Yahusha rose again, he was no longer flesh. He went back to what he was previous. Spirit, Yahuah, the messenger of Elohim. Echad, Echad, Echad. So, we absolutely need a Messiah. We absolutely need a Savior. Just please read Isaiah Yeshayahu 4. Matter of fact, we're going to read it really quickly, and I'm going to tell you how I got into this. And I want you to do this study. Please do it on your own. Don't listen to me. Do it on your own. Study to show yourself approved. It's doing something to me. It's changing me in a beautiful way. In a way that is, I just can't wait to continue to read and get further into this. When I had that first idea of figuring out the difference between Elohim and Yahuah Elohim and being Echad and the two great lights, and to rule the day, to rule the night, and then being a great light, so them being one thing, they are both great lights, but one's greater than the other. Like, that was the beginning of this. And then this was like just another layer on that cake later on in my journey of growth that Yahuah has revealed to me. But first, he took me to the beginning, right? Anyway, let's go ahead and quickly read Isaiah 4. And then you can kind of see where I got this idea of searching out the idea of Echad between Yahusha HaMashiach, Yahuah, and Elohim, and how they are not three separate entities, but they are Echad. Please forgive me. All right. Isaiah or Yeshayahu chapter 4. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we shall eat our own food and wear our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name to take away our reproach. Here's where it got me from here to the end of the chapter. And in that day, the branch of Yahuah. So I first started to study the branch of Yahuah. The branch of Yahuah shall be splendid and esteemed. Okay, then I started searching and studying the esteem of Yahuah. And the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for the escaped ones of Yisrael. Then I started looking up fruit. And it shall be that he who is left in Sion and who remains in Yerushalayim is called set apart, everyone who is written among the living in Yerushalayim. And when Yahuah has washed away the filth of the daughters of Sion and rinsed away the blood of Yerushalayim from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning, then Yahuah shall create above every dwelling place of Mount Sion and above her gatherings a cloud of smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the esteem shall be a covering. Now Yahusha, HaMashiach, is known as our covering, while Elohim, or Yahuah, is his covering. Well, Elohim is his covering, right? But then I was thinking, cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. Haven't we heard of that before in the scriptures in our father's time when they came out of Egypt or Mitzrayim, perhaps? Remember when Pharaoh got all of his armies and decided to chase after them? Wasn't it a pillar of cloud that separated them? Wasn't it a pillar of cloud that went in front of them by day and fire behind them at night? Oh. But here, it's saying that when Yahuah returns to clean up the daughters of Sion and to clean up Jerusalem and to gather his fruit, that he will be a cloud of smoke and a pillar of fire above all of our dwelling places. But who's supposed to come back and gather us? And who's supposed to be ruling in New Jerusalem when it comes down from heaven? When it comes down from the Shamayim? Was that not Yahusha HaMashiach, who was risen as the first fruit? Makes you think, huh? So I had to go study that. I had to find all the scriptures based on that. But then it goes on, right? So, a cloud of smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the esteem shall be a covering, and a booth for shade in the daytime from the heat, for a place of refuge, and for a shelter, and from storm and rain. A booth. Well, that sounds super familiar as well. Booth. Why does that sound so familiar? Oh, because a booth would be a sukkah. And a sukkah would be the whole idea of Sukkot, where we dwell in booths and celebrate for 7 days, right? And then, so I had to look up all the scriptures about that, and that went back to, guess what? Genesis, the beginning, Bereshith. Now, when we came out of Mitzrayim or Egypt, the first campground was Sukkot. And it turns out that Yaakov, when he left Laban, after he met back with Esau, and Esau said, come to Mount Seir, and he said, I got all these flocks and everything, just let me take my time, that he built a house and set up booths for his livestock, okay, in Sukkot. So he set up sukkahs for his flocks and his herds, and that place became Sukkot. We are the children of Yisrael, and when we came out of Egypt or Mitzrayim, the first place we went to was Sukkot, and for 40 years we dwelt in booths, in sukkahs. There's so much to learn from this study. I'm not giving y'all all the answers. Y'all need to go do the research yourself. You got to dig deep. You got to use everything you got in there. I learned so much from this study just from reading that one chapter, Isaiah chapter 4. And I learned something about studying the scriptures from this. So this video has been completely long enough. For anybody who's willing to watch this, you have got to be interested in understanding the idea of Echad. And you've just got to be somebody who deals with raw, real conversation, because I know that I'm not teaching you anything. I'm not called to teach, but I do feel like Yahuah is doing something in me, and I'm supposed to share what he's doing. And not to teach anybody what to do, but to inspire people to dig into the scriptures the way I am. I feel like I'm going from being a Berean to really learning how to study to show myself approved. And maybe I can talk to you guys about my process, and it might help somebody in their process. I don't know. That's really what I'm all about. I'm just about inspiration and explaining what it is I'm doing, and just trying to be a light. You know, be a light on a hill. Be a light on a hill. Be a light on a hill. I'm not a teacher. You're not here to learn scriptures from me. I'm not here to teach you scriptures. Do not listen to what I say and say, yep, I believe that. I could be leading you completely astray. It says in the end, there are going to be many false prophets, many false teachers. I'm not here to prophesy. I'm not here to teach. I'm just here to tell you what I'm going through and inspire you to read a chapter, find something that stands out and catches your attention from something else that you've read, and be curious enough to pull out your phone, look up scriptures, recall scriptures, find them, dig, highlight, take notes, write it down. I couldn't have quoted any of those scriptures to you today had I not written them down. I don't know scriptures off the top of my head. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. But I think that Yahuah is starting to teach me how to study the scriptures as opposed to just read them. And I have to say that I have gleaned more from studying than I have from reading. But the truth is that I could not have gotten to this place of study had I not read. So I believe that you have to read the scriptures so that you have some reference point, so that something catches your attention while reading and causes you to study and look where you're saying, hey, wait a minute, I've heard that before somewhere else in this book. And you start to put those puzzle pieces together. Because I do feel like the scriptures is like a puzzle, right? Some puzzles in life are, when we're young, they're like 10-piece puzzles, right? Then you get a 25-piece puzzle. Then you get a 50-piece puzzle. Then you get a 100-piece puzzle. Then you get a 250-piece puzzle. Then you get a 500-piece puzzle. Then you get a 1,000-piece puzzle. Well, the Bible, I can't even tell you how many piece puzzle that is. But you have got to want to put that picture together, to sit down and put those pieces together. You cannot be lazy about it. You've got to put in the work. But as you do, that picture becomes so clear, and it makes you just want to sit there and dig through those pieces and dig through them and dig through them and just keep on trying to push them together until they make sense. Right? So, I don't know, be a puzzler. Read through it. It's like laying out all your pieces and just looking at each one of them. Read through it. Get it in your mind. Get it written on your heart. Then start reading it again. And as you do, something's going to jump out. Like for me, as I was reading Isaiah, suddenly I was like, wait a minute. A pillar of cloud, fire by night. I know where that is. That's in Exodus. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me put some study in it. It was worth it, y'all. I've completed my study now on chapter 4. I've talked to y'all about my study on chapter 4. It tied into my study with the 2 great lights and the stars. And tomorrow I'll read chapter 5. Precept upon precept, line upon line. Here a little, there a little. It's the truth. It works. All right. That's it. This has been long enough. Hopefully somebody will watch it. Time for me to go to bed. So I have some energy to do this all again tomorrow with chapter 5. Shalom.